Welcome to the Path to Mindset Mastery. My name is Brad Bizjack. I'm a mindset strategist and coach, inspirational speaker, and creator of Appreciation Academy, and I help online business owners silence all the negative self-talk that's going on up here, holding them back from their dreams so they can finally see the success that they deserve. And I'm curious, do you have a voice in your head that's just mean? Almost like obnoxiously mean, telling you that you're never going to amount to anything, or that you suck, or that you'll never figure it out. And it kind of hurts to hear that voice, right? It's just consistent doubt and worry, and it's focused on the negative, and you're sitting there just wishing that voice would shut up, but you can't figure out how. And then on top of it, you almost have this frustration or anger towards yourself. Like your highest standards are being violated, and you're face to face with mediocrity when you know in your heart you're meant for so much more. And you know that you should take responsibility for your future, but it ends up just turning into blame and resentment toward yourself. You blame yourself for why you are where you are. You blame yourself for why you're stuck. You blame yourself for being your own worst enemy. And if you've been listening to my podcast for a while, by the way, don't bullshit yourself into believing that that's you if you've already mastered this, because I know how easy it is to be like, yeah, that's me after we've already mastered it. But if you've already broken through it, say that, claim that, own that. That's amazing. But if you're in that spot where you're just kind of stuck being mean to yourself, it's not very fun, is it? You want to feel emotionally free and emotionally happy, don't you? But you don't know how to do it. And you know you should take responsibility for your life, but you're so angry with yourself that you don't see the results you want, and it turns into nothing. So you start to believe that nothing you ever try will work. And that might be extreme, but does that sound like someone you know? Maybe someone you know very well? I faced that too. I blamed other people. I blamed my family. I blamed my finances. I blamed my age. I blamed plenty of things. But when I really look back at it, when I was in my deepest, darkest time, sitting there feeling helpless, wishing my life would change, but not able to get myself to take action, I was blaming myself. I was pissed off at myself for being less than I could be. I was pissed off at myself for being face to face with mediocrity when I know I was meant for so much more. I knew I was meant for so much more. And all those words kept coming back. Brad, you're a worthless piece of shit, right? Brad, you're going to end up like your family. Brad, you're never going to be free. Who the heck do you think you are to dream big? It's your fault you're here. And while it is true that it is 100% on me for being where I was missing a really critical piece. So put this in your notes. Blaming yourself for where you are and taking responsibility for where you are two completely different things. So today, I'd like to share with you how I broke through self-blame and how I started to silence that little asshole that was living between my ears that I couldn't get to shut up. So write this down. You are 100% responsible for your life. You don't control what happened in the past. You only control how you go forward from here. Blaming gives you a way out of taking responsibility. So first, what are the differences between self-blame and taking 100% responsibility, self-responsibility? Well, self-blame focuses on the past. Taking 100% responsibility for your life focuses on where you're going to go from here. Self-blame gives you a way out. It's like saying, I know I should be grateful for the life that I have, but then not practicing gratitude, right? Just knowing something is nothing. Knowledge is not power. Knowledge is only potential power. So what matters is what you do. And self-blame keeps you doing nothing because it focuses on something that already happened. Taking responsibility, 100% responsibility on the other hand for your life, focuses on the future. So it focuses on where you're going to go next. It solves the problem. Self-blame says, it's my fault, and makes you feel disempowered and empty. Taking 100% responsibility for your life focuses on how you get to choose your next move. It makes you feel empowered and excited. Self-blame focuses on what you should or shouldn't have done. Taking 100% responsibility for your life focuses on how things panned out exactly as they were meant to, so you can take responsibility for the future. Do you see the massive difference between these two? Most people think that if they blame themselves instead of others, they're taking responsibility. But what's really happening is you're giving yourself a way out of responsibility if you blame yourself. So how do you break through this? Number one, cultivate gratitude. And please go back and listen to my podcast episode called Using the Pain of Your Past to Create Greatness. It'll dive deep, deep, deep into this topic. But you have to find the blessing instead of the challenge, or find the blessing in the challenge, excuse me. So ask yourself, why is this a great thing? How would my highest self respond to this? Or what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? If you find the blessing instead of the fault, not only will you change the meaning, but you change your entire future. Then practice the actual art of gratitude. Practice being genuinely grateful for the lesson that you find. Answer the question and be grateful for it. Gratitude only works if you truly feel grateful for where you are now. That's Abundance 101. It's loving your life as is and wanting more for yourself at the same time. That's abundance. So cultivate gratitude for where you are right now. How would your highest self see this? Number 2, of breaking through self-blame is practicing forgiveness. And I'll teach you in my flagship course, Appreciation Academy, how to forgive when you don't want to. It's one of the most important tools you could ever use to create success. But because resentment, even if it's towards yourself, doesn't change anything. And it just keeps you stuck. It's like, imagine carrying a bag of bricks in a backpack up a mountain, or a duffel bag even more uncomfortable up a mountain. You don't have to do it to get to the top. You choose to. Forgiveness is literally like setting that bag of bricks down, and it makes the hike so much easier. So if you struggle with self-blame and resentment and negative voices in your mind, you need Appreciation Academy. It's life-changing. And for anyone who's listening to this podcast, you get 50% off of the program by entering the promo code podcast, all one word in all caps at checkout. So that's number 2. Number 3 is tell yourself the truth. So I want to transition into the part of this podcast that focuses on the inner voice living in your mind. But before I do, one of the simplest ways to break free from these negative voices when you're in a state of blame is to ask the question, is that actually true? Or am I just putting myself into a disempowered state? And guess what's going to happen? Since you're in a disempowered state, your mind's going to go, yeah, that's true, right? But I challenge you to answer the question as your highest self, because deep down, you know all those words going on in your mind are not true. It's not true that you're worthless. It's not true that you're a piece of crap, right? Ask yourself your highest self to answer that question. Is this true, or am I answering it from a disempowered state? Deep down, you know you are meant for so much more. So ask yourself the truth from the highest level of yourself. The truth shall set you what? Free. That's right. So tell yourself the truth because it's so helpful. One of the best ways to do this is an exercise just draw 2 circles side by side next to each other. Not a Venn diagram, but 2 circles next to each other. Above the left circle, write my story about what's happening. And above the right circle, write the truth. And in the left circle, write out all the stories playing around in your head. I'm not good enough. Oh, it's your fault, right? You're trash, you always will be. Whatever it is, write all that stuff down. It doesn't even need to be self-deprecating. It can be just talking about the overwhelm of the situation. Write it all in that left circle. Whatever it is, write them all down. And then in the right circle, from the highest level of yourself, say, what's the truth about the situation? Maybe it's, oh, I just made one simple mistake. Or maybe it's, I didn't hit my monthly benchmark. Or, oh, you know what? I need to have better communication on this. Whatever it is, just one sentence, what's the truth? Because you're going to find a couple things from doing this exercise. Number 1, you're going to find that the left circle is extremely complex and impossible to solve. And second, you'll find the right circle is extremely simple and very easy to solve. Because write this down, complexity is the enemy of execution. If you're telling yourself stories about what happened, it makes life extremely complex and hard to deal with. And if it's complex, you won't do anything to change your life. Instead, you'll start building limiting beliefs that aren't true and you'll blame yourself. But if it's a simple answer, like on the right, where you're focusing on, oh, I just didn't hit my monthly benchmark, or oh, I just didn't invite people that day, or whatever it is, you can empower yourself and realize that it's actually pretty easy to solve your challenge. You just need to remove the you from the equation and tell yourself the truth, which leads me to number 4, and it's so helpful. Number 4 is disassociate from the limiting stories. One of the biggest myths that you can believe about your mindset is that the voice playing in your mind is actually you, when it's not. And that sounds kind of woo-woo, right? But it's not. It's a lower, fear-based, disempowered level person, right? That's what it is. The real you is your highest self. You know when you're being the real you, your highest, most elevated self. So have you ever been in the shower or doing the dishes and you hear that voice in your head going 1,000,000 miles an hour all over the place, kind of like a pinball machine, and it's extremely negative, overwhelmed, very confused, overwhelmed with 1,000,000 different things? So many people let this voice take them over and actually think that it's them, but your highest self isn't negative. Your highest self lives in a beautiful state. Your highest self isn't pessimistic, living in fear. Your highest self doesn't live in fear at all, but the mind will. So you are your highest self. The mind, I want you to imagine, is a different person. So let's call this person, what I learned from Michael Singer's The Untethered Soul, let's call this person your inner roommate. Imagine for a second that the voice in your head were a real life person. Imagine just for a second, just play ball with me here. If that voice in your head were a real life person, would you hang out with that person? No. Definitely not. That person is crazy and super negative. No one would hang out with them in their right mind. So why do you let that person be the most important peer group member in your entire life? Why do you let that person run your life? Why do you seek the counsel of a crazy person? It doesn't make sense. So the best strategy to deal with this is to give that person a name, a funny name that interrupts the pattern of negative thinking going on. One of my clients named hers Eeyore. One of my other clients named that negative voice Gladys, like from Friends. Right? Whatever you want that name to be, name it, but make it something funny, something that's kind of odd, something weird. And when you notice that negative voice come up, you can just notice that he or she is in there and say, silly Eeyore, I don't have time for you right now, but thanks for stopping by. Right? Do you see what it does there? Like, it's silly and it's so ridiculous, but this works. By doing this, you'll have accomplished a couple things. Number one, you've interrupted your negative thinking pattern. You've interrupted that pattern. So you'll already feel better. Second, you've disassociated from the negativity and realized that you are not negative. It's the voice in your mind that's negative. So by disassociating, you can take responsibility for what's next. And third, you've leveled up to your highest self and you've realized that you are not that voice in the mind, right? Your highest self can crush any goal, any dream, anything you want to put your mind to. So disassociate from that voice in your mind. I know it seems silly. I know it seems far-fetched, but I'm telling you it works. I promise you. So let's recap. 1, blame and responsibility are not the same thing. 2, be grateful for the past and ask yourself what you can learn from it. 3, forgive yourself. And I'll teach you how to do that in Appreciation Academy. 4, tell yourself the truth because complexity is the enemy of execution. And 5, disassociate from the negative voice in your mind by realizing it is not your highest self. When you master these 4 skills, self-blame won't be a thing. Self-blame only comes when you listen to the negative voice in your mind. When you are your highest self, you live in a state of total responsibility for your life and for your future. And that's an exciting place to live because you're focused on the solutions and what you can create instead of the problem and why you're stuck. So before we hop off here, just a quick favor. If you found value in this, head over to iTunes. Give this podcast a rating and review. The higher it's rated, more people it can serve. And of course, there are people on your team that need this. So screenshot it, put it in your Instagram stories, share this message with your team and others who need to hear it today. But thanks so much for tuning in to the Path to Mindset Mastery. My name is Brad Bizjack. Go out there today and every day and live your life with a genuine smile on your face because it's really, really easy to do when you're living as your highest self. I'll see you next week.